Good afternoon, Steve Predetti. She's going to get my presentation up. Community Development Director for a few more hours. We're here today because the board asked to have a workshop. We're here to get consensus on the level of service and frankly, to end the silliness and bring this to a conclusion. We have assembled a bevy of experts from consultants, Caltrans, and CDA staff. We have licensed professional engineers, we have professional planners, we have licensed traffic engineers. Now, since I've been at CDA, I've really tried to focus our decision-making on facts and data, and not just on emotion. I've insisted that staff bring you those data and facts. Personally, I don't care if Highway 50 is at LOS-A or LOS-F. We're going to calculate it based on the information that we have, bring you that information, and then deal with it. When we've had problems in the past, I brought them forward. When we had problems with our contract change orders and we weren't following public contracting code, I brought it to you and we dealt with it, and we were transparent. In all the issues that we've had where there are problems, we show up and we deal with them, and it's the same with LOSF. I really don't care. We're going to bring you our professional opinions based on what the facts tell us. And I will remind you that determination of LOS, it's a technical issue. It's based on objective criteria. It's not subjective. It's not how it feels. It's based on specific data run through standards. We use actual Caltrans traffic counts. We apply that to the Highway Capacity Manual, the standard that's used not only nationally but internationally to determine level of service. We've hired many unbiased experts in traffic engineering to prepare and review these results. We've had 20-plus hearings to gain input. We've discussed many technical issues brought up by the citizens, and we've responded to them. But it's decision time, and actually it's way past decision time. Now, as Claudia just mentioned, General Plan Assumption Number 7 says that the plan balances competing considerations. Roadways are not to be sized solely on peak period traffic. We have to take into account the enormous expense. And I'm also going to remind you that General Plan Policy TCXD, the voter-approved General Plan, says that the level of service will be defined in the latest edition of the Highway Capacity Manual and calculated using methodologies contained in the manual. Analysis periods shall be based on the professional judgment of the Department of Transportation and shall consider periods including but not limited to weekday average daily traffic, AM peak hour, and PM peak hour traffic volumes. So it's very clear how level of service is to be determined and who's responsible for that determination. The County Transportation Department is responsible. This is very similar to the chief building official who makes determinations of stability of structures. I'm his boss, but I cannot override his determinations, and with all due respect to your board, this determination based on the general plan is to be made by the Department of Transportation, by us. As a director of transportation, I have ensured that our level of service determination is based on the latest edition of the Highway Capacity Manual. I've reviewed the input, the output, and the related information with my staff. I've reviewed the opinions of many experts, including many licensed traffic engineers. I've taken the public comments into account, and I have determined that we have adequately responded to them. No recognized traffic expert has stated that our model or our determinations are incorrect. It's my professional judgment that the level of service determinations that CDA has provided are correct. We're currently at level of service E based on the calculations. Now, unless the board believes that me, my staff, our 3 consulting firms, Caltrans and SACOG, have all jointly either screwed up the calculations, that we haven't done our due diligence, or that we're somehow colluding to misrepresent them, as has been stated by some of our citizens, then you need to accept these answers and let us move on. We need to stop the silliness. We need to end Groundhog Day. I need to quit having my staff do this. For the last month, I've had my 3 traffic engineers redoing, just coming up with all this information and trying to go over it and go over it. I would rather have them working on the Cameron Park interchange and finding a way to drop the cost of that $86 million project so we can come up with something we can actually build and help the traffic. We're wasting time. The more we circle back, the less we're going to accomplish elsewhere. This whole situation reminds me of something called the Flat Earth Society. Steve? Yes. I know, I talk too fast when I get nervous, sorry.
It's okay.
The Flat Earth Society is a very small group of people who are dedicated to the proposition that the world is flat, it's not round. Despite overwhelming facts and evidence to the contrary, it's based on their preconceived conclusions. Now, it's emotionally based. It was based originally on a religious conviction. It's not based on scientific data, so it's based on emotion. They feel it. From a local perspective, Oh, there we go.
It's there.
Thank you. From a local perspective, you look at the horizon, you can't perceive that there's any curvature to the Earth. The Earth looks flat. But the scientific evidence is overwhelming that the Earth is indeed round. Now, when asked why would scientists insist that the Earth is round, well, it's because it's a conspiracy. There are vague benefits to the scientists. According to the website, they say that somehow it involves NASA, that once they started trying the space program, they found out they couldn't actually do space exploration, so they started, it was a way to get money and do something. I don't know, the benefits remain very vague to me. However,
Steve, are you telling me that we actually did land on the moon?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
I will tell you that was not a conspiracy. It did in fact happen.
Hey, I saw a movie called Capricorn 1 said something. Sorry, OJ was in it.
With OJ, exactly.
I had someone trying to convince me that it was all a big movie set thing, land on the moon. Go ahead, Steve, I'm sorry.
Well, the one thing they never consider is their conclusion might be wrong because, in fact, the Earth remains round. It is round. What are the facts related to level of service? We have overwhelming evidence that we've had level of service C through E over the past 5 or 6 years at Highway 50, El Dorado Hills Boulevard. We're using the accepted standards for calculation of level of service. We're using the actual data from Caltrans, as the opponents have repeatedly, or the people who are questioning this information have repeatedly requested we use actual data. We have experts prepare and review the calculations, and we have agreement among all those experts. Yet a few citizens continue to question the results based on their preconceived conclusion that LOSF exists. It's based on emotion. They have told us it feels like LOSF. They tell us our model does not give them the results that they experience, what they feel. And it's from a local perspective, much as I was talking about just a minute ago. This is what they're feeling. Level of service D. Drivers experience reduced physical and psychological comfort levels. Even minor incidents can be expected to create queuing. Level of service E. Virtually no usable gaps, little room to maneuver. Vehicles entering from a ramp or vehicle changing lanes can establish a disruption wave that propagates throughout upstream traffic flow. Any incident can be expected to produce a serious breakdown and substantial queuing. Physical and psychological comfort afforded to drivers is poor. This is what's being experienced, and this is the conclusion. Because of this experience, they're saying it's LOSF, but it's not. It's LOSE. It's LOSD, depending. Not that there are not times of LOSF. There are not times. There are absolutely times where traffic backs up, where there are accidents, where bad days. Yeah, it does happen on occasion, but it does not rise to the level of meeting LOSF under the definition. So, they cherry-pick information and rationalize. They bring you instantaneous Caltrans level of service data at select locations. The same data. I'm fine. It's the same data that Caltrans on their website says you can't trust. Take it with a grain of salt. They literally say that because it's, as Andrew Brandt said, sometimes it's algorithms that are calculating it. It's not actual. Every time we respond to their questions, or their with answers, they change the reason why our calculations are wrong. Travel demand model was incorrect, they said. Well, we aren't using the travel demand model. Then they said it's the actual PIMS data. We need to be using actual PIMS data. And we told them we are using the actual PIMS data. Caltrans gave us that data. They said you need to get Caltrans to agree with you. Caltrans does agree with us. Last time we were here, they started talking about using speed and density and getting radar guns and drones to count the numbers. So now they're implying that maybe the HCM is not correct and it's not the correct model. But the general plan policy, by the way, says use the HCM, and it's used nationwide. So we have investigated and responded, and all the experts agree with our analysis. So when we ask, why would all the experts lie about this and say it? It's because there's a conspiracy. A conspiracy apparently among county staff, our consulting firms, SACOG and Caltrans. That's just not reasonable. There are vague benefits they talk about. You know, this sounds very familiar. They're telling us the earth is flat, but it's not. I respectfully suggest their arguments are based on emotion and not fact. I'll remind everyone that professionals, the engineers, apply facts to standards to reach a conclusion. It's not the other way around. And when you apply facts to standards, you find the earth is round and we're not at LOSF. Now, a little bit of background. and information related to the public comments. And some of this is repetitive with what you've heard, but I really want to drill this down and be done with it. How do we determine LOS? We use the Highway Capacity Manual. It's a national model. All the states in green use the Highway Capacity Manual. That would be all 50 states. It's also used in Canada. It's used in other countries. Why do we use it? It's required by the general plan. As Natalie said, it debuted in 1950. It was last updated in 2010, which is why we're using it. 300 professionals were involved in the update. Dr. Richard Dowling of Kittleson was the committee chair, the same Dr. Richard Dowling that reviewed and approved our model and our results, in addition to all the other experts we have. I think that's pretty solid grounding. What criteria is used in the model? Most of that is included in the attachment 5B that we had on the August 30th hearing. We use PIMS data for the number of vehicles. We only use the good data, at least 90% observed. It's provided by Caltrans. We also use slope, lane width, shoulder width, a whole lot of other things that are listed up here. So it's not just the volume. We're not ignoring anything as was implied the last time we met. The Caltrans website, the instantaneous data and graphs, we've talked about that, how it's generated with algorithms, and that it's not necessarily correct. In the report itself, the website says that when direct, and I won't bother again with the algorithms, but you're aware of that. The standard, level of service standard, is for 1 hour. It's not instantaneous. LOSF has to be there for an hour. Tuesday through Thursdays, we use typical days, Tuesday through Thursday. We use specific months of the year when school is in session. So we're not, that's why you may feel LOSF or feel the traffic really difficult on other days, but those aren't necessarily the days that are used based on the standard that we're required to use. And it's based on the free flow of traffic, not when they're back up from accidents. Now, we understand that traffic slowdowns are irritating, but that's not the standard. We've already highlighted LOS definition. While citizens may experience the temporary backups, it just does not constitute LOSF based on the specific Highway Capacity Manual criteria. Who calculated? So now we've talked about the model itself. Who did the work? You've already seen this. We have 3 different consulting firms, all of whom have extremely good and competent people. SACOG, Caltrans, and our own staff. The Caltrans concept report, transportation concept report and corridor system management plan has been cited as saying that we currently have LOSF. Now, first I'd like to point out this is a concept level model, as it says in the title. It's purposefully intended to be conservative. It's extremely high level and approximate. It's a statewide and has a different purpose. Therefore, it's not intended to be as precise as our model. It does not reflect the general plan level of service requirements. For example, it uses the average annual traffic. It's not using AM/PM traffic in the average that Andrew talked about. It would be inappropriate to use this for the 10-fee nexus study or for conditioning new development. I'm a water engineer originally. To me, it's somewhat similar to the conservative estimations you use for concept level studies when you're looking at rivers and the flow of rivers. You use very high flow estimates, a 200-year flow, a flow that you expect to occur once every 200 years. You look upstream in Sacramento, you look at upstream, and all the levees up there would be overtopped in a 200-year storm. But the assumption is they don't overtop and that the water continues down. And so by the time it comes to Sacramento, we assume all those levees can hold it even though it's not possible. And so the flow is much higher than it would be. And then you build freeboard of several feet above that elevation to make sure. Yeah, it's your safety factor. You're being conservative on purpose. And respectfully, I believe that what Caltrans did with their concept report is they're also being very conservative. And it's intentional. And it's okay that ours are different. We have a programmatic level model. And our programmatic model is really one of the more detailed ones. You saw how detailed it was in the earlier presentation. But it's a different level. And so we're going down deeper. How's that? And coming up with better numbers. Caltrans has reviewed and fully accepts the county travel demand model and our LOS determinations. We have all the same assumptions except for the traffic volume input. And we'll continue, Caltrans will continue to review us project by project as we move forward. Okay, public service, we had the public workshop on October 10th. I'm not going to go over those comments that we received. You have all that, other than one. One comment was that it feels wrong for Caltrans to be part of the presentation that night. And I couldn't disagree more. I think it's very appropriate. Supervisor Frenson on August 30th said, we seem to be fighting Caltrans. Caltrans is here to show that we're not fighting. We're actually very much in sync. Once we met and realized the actual professional differences were really minor, and they were because of the different types of reports that we're doing, we've been in sync ever since. And we all agree on the results. And by the way, this is a Caltrans road we're talking about, so I think it's very appropriate for Caltrans to be here. And I'll remind everyone, again, this is a technical issue, not policy. Extended arguments of technical issues by lay people, I don't have a problem with responding to the questions, but we should not keep going over and over and come up with new reasons. I'm sure you'll hear new reasons today why our model is wrong, new data. It's just not there. Everyone agrees, all the experts agree. We have taken in all that information, we investigated, we responded, and frankly, that time has been spent. We have more consultants on this than anybody would ever have. We're spending extra money and extra time. And respectfully, while a few citizens have complained about the difference between the county calculated LOS and citizen experienced LOS, the technical calculations have to be provided by technical experts. They must follow both the general plan and industry standards. Our experts started with facts, applied them to the standard criteria in the HCM, and determined the LOS. The board needs to ask yourself whether you want to rely on technical calculations by the experts or the feel of lay people, which is least biased, and which will hold up in a court of law. So before you make that decision, we've got the last bit of evidence. I'm several behind. We've got some video of Highway 50.
Bambi's not in this, is it?
No.
Because that would bother me.
No, these are on different days. You can see the traffic is slow. This is just west of El Dorado Hills Boulevard. These are on different days that meet the criteria of that we use in determining LOS. Traffic is certainly moving there. That would not,
What time
I would
is,
suggest that's not LOS.
what time is that in?
Are these all at 7:30?
Yes. 7:30?
These are at 7:30. We have another one that'll show different times. You see the traffic is moving. There are gaps.
Well, what's that to the right?
Yeah, we know what that is.
No, it's not.
Supervisor McCullough.
Some white sign. Ghost sign. Illegally placed.
I suspect that place with permission.
600 feet.
What time is this right here, Steve?
Same time.
Same time.
7:30?
Different days.
And we're going to show, we have different times on another screen.
Is this file of a size capable of being part of Legistar?
I'll check. But here's a secondary video.
It's another one. This is split screen. We're showing Highway 50 at the same location we just did, and we're showing Highway 50 Bradshaw, west of Bradshaw Road for comparative.
It's at the same time.
Same time, 7:15,
Same
so,
day.
Same time, same day.
yes.
Yeah, but between
Well, there'll be-
Bradshaw, you got
You'll see half an
Sunrise,
hour
you
later.
got Ocean Boulevard, Prairie City, Bidwell.
Yes.
Point
That,
is-
which is why that would be closer
I
to
think it's
LOSF.
Infidel, correct?
Whereas ours is not LOSF. And this is not even downtown. This is at Bradshaw. So you can see the difference. 7:30.
I believe it's Infidels before Bradshaw.
Yes, it is. I think the difference is pretty stark.
Okay. Anything else?
No, I think that's pretty good. I think I will remind you as the Director of Transportation, it's my determination as required by the general plan that we are at LOSE based on the 2015 data.
Hold on, so don't go anywhere.
The earth is round.
And the earth remains round. yes.
Any questions for Steve?
Thank you, Steve.
Sue?
Yeah, thank you for that. I would just counter with saying that as the Board of Supervisors, I feel it's incredibly important that when there's confusion, which there has been
Oh, yeah.
about this F, that we get it out. So I don't call
Absolutely.
it silliness. I take offense to that, honestly.
Okay.
This is not silliness. This is a part of the process. Yeah, it's taken longer probably than it should have. But I have to say that this is a part of the public process, like it or not, that when there's confusion, and there has been, that we get out the right answers. And so, again, there could have probably been a lot easier, a lot better way to do it.
Right.
But the bottom line is people saw something from Caltrans that was different than what we had at the beginning, got confused, started the confusion, started the,
Right.
a lot of mistrust, and I think that just grew up. So in that relative
Sure.
area there, I do understand why there's so much confusion and so much mistrust.
And I have no problem with providing the information. It seems like we've been providing it over and over, and there's always some new angle that's trying to change it, and that's where I struggle.
I realize your frustration, and I can't say how much I really appreciate all that you've done, but I think as a part of you being a civil engineer versus us being in this area,
Sure.
that this is our expertise, trying to make sure we get all the right information.
No, absolutely.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Brian?
I'm good.
I just have one question, Steve. So how do you really feel?
My name's Rusty Everett. I'm a local resident of El Dorado Hills. People gave their credentials earlier, so I'll give mine really quickly. I was an executive in a tech company in the Bay Area that I helped grow from $20 to $800 million. I started my own company and sold it once for $65 million, and then a second time for $85 million.
You sold the same company twice?
Yep. I'm part of a $6 billion public company. I've got walls full of patents. Or as Mr. Predetti would have said, I'm a layman. So I think it's interesting that we heard from the experts today say things about they didn't know, there were averages, there's assumptions, they use formulas, they don't count every car on the PIM system, there's broken equipment. We understand those things to be questions, and how do we drill down on them? Mr. Predetti calls us conspiracy theorists, that we have some kind of religious fever that we're chasing on it. I'm not even a religious person. And that yet he calls us crazy for asking these questions and insults us. And no, you didn't interrupt him, Mick. So give me the same respect, please. I'm a tax-paying citizen. I pay the salaries here. I pay a lot of taxes in this county, so I pay a lot of salaries sitting around this table. And at the end of the day, he takes those same statements that we have questions about, and they're empirical fact. We used 2015 data. Even though the PIM system produces data daily, we can get immediate data. So we used a year-old, 18-month-old data. We didn't account for the housing growth. It showed right here on the data that the housing growth has been going on since that data was collected. We didn't use the 8 a.m. peak hour, which the data presented by one of the presenters early actually showed was the heavier traffic pattern, not 7 a.m. And we didn't include Monday. And anyone that lives in El Dorado Hills knows several people that leave Monday morning and leave their families and drive to the Bay Area to spend several days working down there and come home. Yet we exclude that very drive time. Predetti himself even said we sometimes get to level F. Measure Y and Measure E are very clear. They don't say you got to get to Measure F for X number of days. When you reach level F, you then have a traffic problem. So it's interesting how we choose and pick words, and I think today was a clear show that the choosing of words from one side versus the other paints the agenda in a very specific pattern. It's disappointing to see that the people of the county are being treated like we're conspiracy theorists, and that we don't actually experience level of service F, and that we're all a bunch of lay people who couldn't possibly understand this incredibly technical stuff that's going on up here. I find that insulting. And in my business, when people leave, we give them a good wish you well, and we wish them well, we see them on their way. And in this case, I would say to the residents of El Dorado County, good riddance to Mr. Predetti if this is how he's going to treat the people that hate him.
Rusty, that's enough.
No, it's not enough. He insulted the people.
Thank you.
We can't say
Thank
good
you.
riddance to
Thank
someone
you.
who's insulting.
Thank you.
That's disappointing, Nick.
I'm kind of starting off, I think.
There's a definite flavor of, this is sad. You know, I love my county, and I'm just appalled at the process that we're going through right now and the arrogance of the county that I've been a big part of. I've worked since the early 80s for 3 different departments. I'm connected to a lot of people here. I've lived here most of my life, and it's just really kind of disgusting where we've come to and where you're throwing all our money at. I appreciate that you clarified that dog and pony show is what it seems more like, but this meeting, I guess, is a workshop to fulfill number 5 from the August 30th meeting that says direct staff to conduct board workshops to address the traffic and circulation issues underlying Measure E. I haven't heard a lot of discussion about Measure E and how it relates to all the things we're talking about today. In fact, I don't even think if it was mentioned here at all. Everybody's focusing on one pinpoint of an area on Highway 50, and you've brought out a lot of consultants spending a lot of money to say things that I would be quite nervous if I were a licensed engineer making some of those statements. And I have to say that this meeting does not fulfill the request for the Measure E committee to meet with Caltrans and DOT. We needed to resolve some questions. The county has talked to Caltrans, but they won't give us the contact people of who they're talking to. So we asked that they be at the room with us when we're having discussions, but they have refused to do so. We even asked for the local DOT to be in the room when we're having these discussions, and instead we get Steve Predetti. We have some simple questions that we need to clear up because the county apparently is holding everything that they are leaning on in regards to how you're going to implement Measure E on these questions. And we need those questions answered. And it still hasn't been answered. I have now more questions. You know, why are we referring to data that's 18 months old? Now that the unemployment has gone down, that means there's a lot more traffic going down Highway 50. You also have more building permits being taken out than you have in the past, which also changes that data. Measure E is not an average or a feeling or any of those other things. It is data, and it is the way that data is used. And the county we have a letter from Caltrans before all this started that says the area in El Dorado Hills is at level of service F. And we have spent so much time and so much energy and resources to dispute that statement from Caltrans. And I don't even know if the Caltrans that showed up knows that this presentation is to discuss how their data relates to Measure E. I would ask another simple question here. Is any of these engineers in the room willing to come up and make a simple statement that there is no location on Highway 50 or any other highway, arterial road, or intersection within the unincorporated area of the county that has reached a level of service F on any weekday peak hour period of time? Or have they violated any of the level of services that are mandated by our general plan? That's a whole nother discussion that I don't know if we ever are going to get to. And I'm a little concerned that Steve Predetti twice misrepresented himself as the director of DOT. And I did not know that. I thought he was director of community services over the director of DOT. So, and to throw, you know, sometimes data is data, and that's what we want. We want clear data, and we're not getting it. We haven't got it. This does not fulfill that requirement or that question, and you violated the intent of our general plan. You rushed through a review for the general plan. You've already submitted it to the state, and I would have to say that that has violated you know, this is so hard because you brought up so many different topics that really have nothing to do with, I thought, what we were supposed to be working on. But that's just my last statement if I can find it. But basically, you violated certifying your general plan when you're missing many elements of Measure E. I documented that for you, submitted it to you. You actually left out policies that you've adopted in your general plan that you submitted to the state, which is going to have a bearing on being certified. And I said, you know, and the other thing, if you're moving forward with these things, I think yesterday was the TIM fee CIP that you're cramming through the system. I brought a lot of fallacies up with that issue. And when somebody at the Planning Commission said, well, this could be a disaster if it's not right, but, you know, they've spent a lot of money on this or something like that, and we just need to move forward. Let's find out what's in it later. But also in that document, there's a lot of fallacies. So it's pretty obvious, you know, you have a meeting because Steve Predetti is still here rather than a supervisor. You're cramming this through to get it done before the end of the year, and I'm sure you have an intent that the public's not aware of. And I'm very sad that we can't have anybody here that really represents the public, only the developers. Thank you.
Thank you.